The chiffon jacket. Now, chiffon fills me with terror. The finishing of the edges, the sewing of the French seams, all of that. But recently I had to make a dress and a jacket. So I had to come up with some details and some techniques to make it not so terrifying. So the details are things like a beautiful roll hem for the cuff and the edges, a very easy way to construct a French seam, and other methods to lay everything out and make it as easy as it can be to work. So this is the class. I call it the Nervous Nellie Guide to Sewing Chiffon because I am the Nervous Nellie. Now, let's take a look at the actual culprit, the chiffon. This is the chiffon. As you can see, very slippery, very transparent, and what we're going to be working with. So the first thing you need with materials is the chiffon. Here is the pattern printed out. As you can see, this is the jacket front, this is the sleeve, and we have the jacket back. It's in sizes 4 through 20. It's a very lightly fitting jacket. No darts. So here is the pattern, 3 pieces. Also note, no seam allowances. So all of these different colored lines indicate stitching lines. We will be addressing the seam allowances later. So here's our pattern. Next, let's look at materials. First, let's talk about paper. This is adding machine tape, cash register tape. You get this at the office supply. This is what we are going to be using to sew some of the body seams on this jacket. It's just good to have in your sewing kit because it's easily torn. You can control your length. If you need just a little bit, it's right there. So it's inexpensive and worth every penny. Now this is what's called medical examining paper, but it has a crepe finish. Notice it doesn't have any kind of shine. There are 2 kinds of medical examining paper that you can get. One is somewhat shiny. This, as you can see, is not. I like this better because the fabric then doesn't slip around on it. The fabric stays put. So when you're working with fluid fabrics like the chiffon, paper is going to be your friend. For the edge, we're going to be using pearl cotton. This particular brand, as you can see, is Aunt Lydia's crochet thread, size 10. This is 100% cotton, and as you can see, I have it here in white, just for general use. And if you're lucky enough to be able to find it in the color that matches what you're going to be working with, all the better. So one or the other will do. For marking, we need just some good sharp pencils. Number 2 would be fine. And also, I'm going to be using the disappearing pens. They're by a company called Friction. I will be using the blue because that way it's a little easier on video to differentiate from the pencil marks. But we want to use the Friction pen when we're marking the stitching line for the edge. I'll explain why when we get there. Other additional tools that you will want to have First off, some really first-rate silk pins. There are some good resources for them. I would recommend the ones that Susan Calgi sells on her website. So good silk pins are a must. And a rotary cutter. And with this, what I would say is do not stint on sharp blades. Start with a fresh blade. If you get a skip, change the blade. The sharp blades are going to make this work much easier. Now, some feet for later. These fall under the category of good to have. This is what's called a number 6 foot, and you can see right there, it has a little hole. This is where we will feed the pearl cotton in for the roll hem. Now, barring this, if you don't have this one, another one that's a good one to have is what's called the open toe embroidery foot. I will demonstrate both of these when we get to that edge, but one or the other is recommended, not absolutely necessary, but the foot that you really want for the roll hem. You've seen this before. I use it a lot. It's the generic 1/4 inch wide adjustable zipper foot. And you will see when I demonstrate that roll edge how easy this makes your work. So as you can see, having the proper equipment is going to make an easy job of this. One more tool that falls in the category of not necessary but helpful is called the quilting foot. The distance from the edge to the needle is exactly 1/4 of an inch. These little marks along the edges make it so that you can turn if you're top stitching to do an accurate 1/4 of an inch. It's usually used for quilting, but we are going to be using it when we sew our French seams. So it's not entirely necessary, but a good idea. You can get these for most machines. Now that we have the proper tools and materials, we can get busy.